did. All right, here we go. So we're gonna talk today about terms everyone should know for their tech interview. Now, I don't know what you'll be interviewing on. I don't know the topics. One thing I do know is that you should probably know these terms. Here we go. The first one is an API. What is an API? Let me get me out the way. All right, so an API, application programming interface. You can read all of that stuff, but I'm going to get to the nitty gritty. So an API is basically a set of rules and protocols that allows different software to communicate with each other. Now, a real world example is when you book a flight on a travel website, that site then uses an API in order to get real-time flight data from, airline and their availability. Another good example is this, because this is how I learned it. You call a restaurant, the hostess answers the phone. She says, hello, blah, blah, blah. You say, hey, I want to book a reservation at your restaurant. She then goes to her manager and asks them, hey, do we have availability at this time for this amount of people? The manager tells her yes or no. Based upon the manager's answer, she comes back to you and she relays that information. She is the API. She's the connector. She communicated certain information from you. She took that information, communicated with someone else. She had all of the information. She was able to pass it back or forth. So that's API for you. All right. The next one is Agile. This is really big for all of those who are in project management. So Agile is, that is not true. That is APN. That is VPN. So that ain't true. Let's skip that. Ooh, your boy got a blooper. All right, the next one we're going to do, cloud computing. Cloud computing, this is how I started in the game, and this is how I suggest people getting in the game because things are moving towards the cloud. All right, so cloud computing, delivering computing services over the internet. So Google Drive is an example of a cloud computing service. You have three different big tiers. You have AWS, you have GCP, and you have Azure, which is Microsoft. GCP is Google, blah, blah, blah. All right, so cloud computing is basically taking everything that your computer can do and pushing it to the internet. This allows for those who have subpar computers through something called like an AVD, Azure Virtual Desktop, to use powerful computers because they live in the world somewhere, but you may not need to buy them. I'm talking specifically about computers, but when you work inside of an organization, you want your data, your storage, computing power, your applications. You want things like that to live somewhere. Specifically through cloud computing, they live in a more powerful computer, but you have access to that powerful computer through the internet. Now, granted, you want fast internet speeds. Everybody needs that anyway for basic video consumption. So cloud computing allows for you to use everything that a computer can do, but through an internet service, pushes it down to your computer, the magic happens. The next one is DevOps. So DevOps is a set of practices that combine software development and IT operations to shorten the development lifecycle and deliver features, fixes, and updates more frequently. Okay, I read it, but I'll explain it. So DevOps is basically a group of people. Some of them have IT experience. Some of them have development experience. Typically, script writers, which if you have been a systems admin anywhere, you've had to write scripts. You had to either write GAM for Google, which is the first, programming style or scripting that I use for actual professional work, or you have to write PowerShell, which is also something that I use for work. Sometimes you can use Python. It just depends upon the needs and the nature of your organization. But a real world example is a team who uses automated tools to test and deploy new code as soon as a developer writes it, reducing errors and saving time. So it's a team of people, operations, development, they all combine, they work together, they go, and they push up until we get to our end goal, which is the best user experience in the safest environment. That's typically how it works. The front end. The front end is what you can see. I'll read the definition, but if you always remember what you can see, what you can interact with as the front end, then you'll probably be in a good space. So the front end, the part of the website or application that users see and interact with. It includes the user interface and user experience elements. A real world example is everything you see on a web page, like buttons, text, images, and layouts, and is part of the front end. So the front end is what you see. When you talk to people about computing, they're probably going to tell you how the application looks, how the email looks, things like that. That is the front end. That is the user interface. That is the part where it's also called like a GUI and things like that. These are the components where creative individuals can do well in computing or IT. And the reason why they can do well is because if you have a design mind, if you have a mind for organizing things, if you have a mind for keeping things in check, in place, easy to use, then you can thrive in a space like this. You just need to learn a couple skills, HTML, CSS, other fringe, languages out there, they do the same thing, but nevertheless, the front end is what you can see. Always remember that component. All right, next we have the back end. The back end is where the magic happens. The proverbial magic. This happens on the back end. The front end is it's not the easy stuff because you have to have a certain mind in order to develop a front end, but you have to have certain skills to develop a back end, and skills pay the bills. All right. So the server side of a website or application that handles logic, data storage, and communication between the server and the front end. The back end, 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 the front end. There's something called middleware. That's a total different type of computing, but you'll hear back, middle, front, back, front, back, front. When you're interacting with a website or when you're interacting with an application, back is where the magic happens. Front is where you use the application. Real world example, when you log into an online store, the back end verifies your username and your password against its database. Back end is where the magic happens. Front end is where the user does whatever they do. All right, so a database. What is a database? A database organizes collections of data. So basically, a list of names is data, or it's a database. And then from there, you can get deeper. So your name, your birthday, the day you were employed, your favorite color, whatever your organization or the organization wants to collect on you. So a definition is an organized collection of structured information or data, typically stored electronically in a computer. It's a list of information. Lists of information can get as dynamic as possible. It can start with a name row with just your names that we all saw when we were in school, and it can get as advanced as what we all think of generative AI. All that is a lot of databases, and they all mix and match and do their little magic and go through their neural network in order to spit out information. We all look at it as magic, but it all is kind of simple. I mean, all of this stuff was made by humans. Always remember that, because if it was made by humans, it can be understood by humans. It looks like magic, but it's just an idea that was expounded upon. And to be honest, we're still trying to fix and rip and plug it in ways to make it most productive for us in the real world. Real world example, a system that stores all customer information, names, address, order history for an e-commerce website. Storage of information, file cabinet, all the little pieces of paper in that file cabinet, that's a database. Algorithms are next. Tune in for the next video, and I will finish populating that and show you. See you next time. Peace out.